Well, hello, everyone. I'm Tim Phillips, president of Americans for Prosperity. Thank you for joining us. I'm on the road today in Illinois, building up grassroots strength across this country. And I'll tell you, one of the big battles is happening back in Washington, D.C. I know a lot of you have been following this $2.3 trillion big spending and Green New Deal that sadly the Biden administration and Speaker Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are pushing. It's got tax increases piled high in it as well, elements of the Green New Deal. It's a disastrous package. So at Americans for Prosperity, we're fighting it tooth and nail, urging our activists to talk to their House members, talk to their two senators. And we're honored today to have a special guest with us who's helping lead that fight in the United States Congress. To introduce him and to kick off this discussion of this really big policy battle happening in Washington, D.C., is Ashley Klingensmith, our Pennsylvania AFP State Director. Ashley, thanks for the work you're doing in PA, and take it away.
Tim, awesome to see you. Congressman Meuser, I am so excited to welcome you. Thank you for joining us. Congressman Meuser serves Pennsylvania's 9th Congressional District, which includes counties from Luzerne down to Berks. He is a fierce advocate for the residents of the district to keep more of their hard-earned dollars. He is currently serving his second term, and he has been committed to diminishing the size and scope of Washington's influence over Pennsylvanians by championing policies like red tape reduction. And as a member of the Budget Committee in the last Congress, he has a commitment now more than ever to reducing the federal debt. And so, Congressman, Washington seems to be embracing talking spending in the trillions. It seems like billions is kind of passe. And so this $2.3 trillion plan is being peddled. We're going to talk about that so-called infrastructure bill a bit later, but I just want to talk about your impressions from the past year. The latest Biden-Schumer Pelosi bill passed in March, the American Rescue Plan, is the 6th COVID bill that's been passed since spring of 2020. This bill is actually going to stop states from being able to reform their taxes and institute tax cuts. So, Congressman, what is your take on the dramatic turn that Washington has taken when it comes to spending and control over state capitals?
First of all, thank you for having me on here today. Americans for Prosperity is a fabulous organization. I know your background and your history, and Tim, you and I have known each other for a number of years now, and actually you represent Pennsylvania so well, and the Klingensmith name goes way back, and we know each other from other parts of our life, but it's been frustrating. Here we had of course, a pandemic that we had to lean in, if you will, and do things that were difficult to do. And it was done because the economy was very deliberately shut down. I mean, the PPP programs, we truly tried to sustain what would have been sustained on its own had the economy not shut down. That's how I looked at it as a conservative, or just as an American, trying to deal with a crisis and get us on the road to recovery. So, I was always pushing, however, in Pennsylvania for safe opening, smart opening, always trying to every day figure out how better businesses can take care of their employees and still operate as we don't kill livelihoods along the way. So it's been certainly a rough year. It's true. I did sign off on $3.7 trillion. I voted for it during the course of 2020, including in December, $906 billion. That was quite bipartisan. That money, the big money, went again for businesses, unemployment compensation, family stimulus checks. Schools as late as December received $130 billion. Their annual budget is $130 billion for K through 12, 170 including higher ed. So the money was there. We were on the road to recovery. Biden administration comes in and feels that it's necessary to come up with a $1.9 trillion level of spending that they called a rescue plan, that it was going to defeat the virus. Yet on the same note, less than 6% of it had funding for vaccines, another 3% for testing and other health needs. And here we had projected GDP in the neighborhood of 6%. It was being forecast. So we were on the road to recovery. I hate trying to, think of people's motives. I don't question their motives, but I do question their intelligence at times and why they took advantage of this crisis in that way on the 1.9 trillion spend. Look, in my view, liberalism really doesn't work out too well. When you take a growing economy and the need for people to get back to work and continue unemployment compensation, when we do the huge stimulus checks, which that are very untargeted, and I get into the details there on how untargeted they were. Those who never missed a paycheck, state work, federal work, never missed a paycheck. Everyone's getting these enormous checks. Some families, $7,000 they were receiving. They weren't going back to work. Biggest problem my small businesses and large businesses have, and
Looks like it may have frozen up, Congressman. I think your screen may have frozen up. Well, actually, he's doing a good job of walking through that spending bill that passed earlier this year. And
Pennsylvania's like as well as across the state. Still frozen. Are we back?
There you go, Congressman. You're back.
All right. And I'm sorry. So just quickly to wrap up, and then they think it's a wonderful idea to have $2.3 trillion in something known as a transportation infrastructure bill when it has less than 10% that actually is going towards transportation infrastructure. And I'm being generous. Let's even call it 15% if we put broadband in, which is necessary. But I don't know if type of spending, am I freezing them up or am I okay?
You're good. You're good to go.
The type of spending on broadband, we need to have the private sector that is operating this and managing it. They have to have their skin in the game. We got a transportation infrastructure bill with $270 billion for charging ports for electric cars. 3% of the population is driving electric cars, and they are more expensive. So the low-income folks who do pay taxes as well are going to be paying for $270 billion worth of charging ports that we know the government's going to put in the wrong places, right? And wait, every one of them, there's not going to be a demographic study and make sure that I make money on it or expand and improve my current services for gas stations or whatever. And look back when Henry Ford started rolling out his cars, not even in the FDR's New Deal, they built gasoline stations. So here we're doing things that are feel good, that are Green New Deal. This transportation infrastructure bill has minimal towards T&I. We're for it. We wanted it during the Trump administration. Nancy Pelosi had no desire to work on that with President Trump during that time. So okay, it's crazy politics. Let's work on something. But as you're stating, state money on the rescue bill being tied to not allowing to make yourselves more competitive and lower taxes, unbelievable. And all the strings attached on this transportation and so-called transportation infrastructure includes, by the way, most of it is the Green New Deal that AOC and others rolled out, right? There's an expansion of the IRS that somehow that's going to be beneficial. There's something called the Civilian Climate Corps, which is going to hire 100,000 people as new federal workers that are going to do something. I'm really not sure what that's going to be. And then there's the other piece of it, the other side of the ledger, that are known as taxes that are going to dampen, if not ruin, the economic recovery of the private sector, which, by the way, as you well know, pays all the revenues for all of these programs.
Right.
So we're killing the goose that lays the golden eggs, all in the name of, a political agenda.
Yeah,
So
no, that's exactly right. I think about those tax increases, Congressman, and frankly, tax increases there's never a great time for a tax increase, especially when the rates are as high as they are here in the United States. But coming out of this pandemic, to hit American families and businesses with a big new tax just strikes me as a terrible idea. And this corporate rate, you guys during the Trump administration, Republicans did a good job. We supported it, of tax cuts and tax reform, which lowered that corporate rate down to 21. It helped American businesses compete against the world, China and Europe and the rest of Asia, and it made us more competitive. It helped contribute to this economy before the pandemic humming at really just a great rate. Low unemployment, high productivity, increasing wages, so much else. Can you talk a little bit? There's this misnomer out there that, oh, let's just hit a couple of big businesses, big corporations with this corporate rate increase. But when I was in Des Moines, Iowa, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to some farmers there, and they're all corporations. They're organized as a corporation. Now they only have probably 20 employees, 30 employees, but this tax increase is going to hit them. It's not just going to hit the big guys. It's going to hit a lot of little guys. Am I right when I say that?
Oh, Tim, well, you are. And how about the inheritance tax as well, which hits farmers worse than typical businesses? Because as you know, they're not cash heavy, they're asset heavy, they're land heavy. When the 35% corporate tax rate was lowered to 21%, we were just getting reasonably competitive with the rest of the world, as you said. Ireland's at 12, UK's at 20, heck, even communist China's at 25. So we needed to be there, and because over the past years, the rest of the world got competitive and the U.S. didn't, and what do we see happen? Our corporations left, and our big corporations would say, just make it close. We will come back. We will repatriate. See, once again, liberalism can't work. Here you have President Biden talking about let's bring manufacturing back to the U.S. Let's make in America. Let's buy American made. And yet he's literally chasing corporations away again, certainly not attracting. And then let's throw in the idea of just the personal income tax being increased. Pass-throughs, which make up 60-70% of our economy, pass-through businesses, all of those owners of those companies, all those entrepreneurs, their taxes will go up. If we know it's down to $200,000, if their company makes $200,000 a year, which many do. They're even looking at removing the 20%, which was approximate 20% reduction for small business. Capital gains. Capital gains is certainly the increase from doubling, basically from 20% to 43%. The idea that that's not going to have effect on markets, which means pensions, which means 401ks, which means savings plans, which means perceived actually real wealth of individuals, retirement plans, all this and what? In the name of big government programs, somehow big government is going to be the solution to everybody's problems. It's wrong. It's an upside down policy agenda.
Yeah.
Congressman, thanks so much. We can't agree more. I want to encourage everyone listening and watching, visit stopthespendingspree.com. You are hearing all of us toss around the term trillions like it's just rolling off the tongue, and that is not how it should be. One day, these bills are going to become due, and it is going to be future generations that had no horse in the race, no stake or say in the conversation right now. And so it is up to us right now to take action. Visit stopthespendingspree.com, sign that letter. It's going to go straight to the inbox of your member of Congress as well as your 2 U.S. senators. I want to pivot back for a moment to the so-called infrastructure package. We said the price tag, $2.3 trillion. Congressman, you touched on this, but I want to dive a little bit deeper about how much of this is really going to traditional infrastructure, roads, bridges, airports, because this is what people think that this is going to, but in fact that is not the case. And we also know that there is a rich history of infrastructure spending bills that are fraught, full of waste, and so we know in 1998, President Clinton worked with Congress on a $217 billion transportation bill. We know President Bush in 2005, a bill that included funding for that infamous, bridge to nowhere. President Obama's 2009 American Recovery and Reinvestment Act had an $831 billion price tag. And so this proposal is giving us some deja vu. And so I'd like your input, your impression on just how much of this is really going to infrastructure, how much is going to things that we've heard infrastructure bills go to in the past, but that we know do nothing for our roads and bridges.
Yeah, sure. The numbers can vary a little bit. I do think broadband is important, but again, government handling this is the wrong way to go. I mean, honestly, if you gave Pennsylvania $20 billion, which is an enormous number, but if you prorate that out based upon our we're the fifth largest state, about a $500 billion bill for all states, and states should be able to run and handle those funds in the most cost-effective way. We could, in Pennsylvania, with $20 billion, we could leverage that. We could issue bonds. We could leverage that to $50 billion. That could be absolutely transformational for Pennsylvania. There's something called the Infrastructure Bank of America. That should be included in this bill. China has an infrastructure bank where almost $1 trillion a year of investment funds from our American investment firms goes to China. But to answer your question, there's $400 billion in this transportation infrastructure bill. It goes to expanding Obamacare, expanding Medicaid. All right. So that's not infrastructure. There's making houses, somehow making homes modernized and green. There's $213 billion goes in that direction. I mentioned the civilian climate corps, the charging ports, $270 billion, and then all of just the general Green New Deal provisions from Biden and AOC and others. So come the end of the day, if it's as much as 600 billion of the 2.3, and the American people need to know this, right? Just like the rescue plan had little rescue in it, transportation infrastructure plan has very little T&I in it.
Absolutely. And Tim, I just want to share a statistic that I heard. More money allocated to electric vehicles than for roads, bridges, and airports combined.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Which also were some of the most expensive automobiles you can buy, which prices out a lot of folks on fixed incomes. Liberalism has a way of benefiting elites and hurting people at the margins, senior citizens on fixed incomes, or that single mom with a couple of kids trying to make it on 40 grand a year. They talk about wanting to help the little guy, but their policies, especially with this Green New Deal, they drive up utility bills, gas prices, and who does that hurt? It hurts the folks struggling on the margins the most. So I want to wrap up with this question, Congressman. I know there are probably folks right now, they heard Ashley say, okay, we'll go to this stopthespendingspree.com, let my congressman know where they can hit the I volunteer link right here on the Facebook thread. But does my voice really matter? My member is already a good member. He or she's probably going to vote against this. Or conversely, my member is probably someone who's going to vote the wrong way anyway. They're not going to listen to me. Let folks know why it is important to take a moment. It only takes about a minute if you go to that stopthespendingspree.com or click on the I volunteer link. But why is it important for activists like the ones watching this to make their voices heard to their member of the House and their two senators on an issue like this tax and spend bill?
Listen, we need to be part of the great American comeback. we know how the difference that policies make. Tim, you and I are old enough to remember Jimmy Carter in the 70s and then Ronald Reagan coming in and creating opportunity for the United States. We can do that again with the right policy structure. This is so important that people engage, because right now there's only a 5-member majority of Democrats in the House. There are some reasonable Democrats out there. Weigh in on them. Let them know that this level of wasteful spending, transportation infrastructure, yes, all the Green New Deal things that we can't even understand because it's pretty incomprehensible. No, and we have to hold them to it. We have to hold. We need those in the House and for the Senate. You know, the filibuster issue. Be weighing in. You know, 50 phone calls to a member of Congress or the Senate is a lot. It's a big country out there. Let's your voice does matter. And that's what's going to matter in the end. We need a majority in the House. We need a majority of Americans speaking out for what we know is in the best interest of all Americans. And honestly, I've known for a long time that's what AFP is about. And I guarantee you that's what I'm about.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. You were hearing from Congressman Meuser from the great state of Pennsylvania, Ashley Klingensmith, our state director with Americans for Prosperity in Pennsylvania. I'm Tim Phillips. We're going to continue this grassroots battle. And I can tell you this. Last week, I was on the road in Arizona, in Montana, in Nevada, and there is a grassroots revolt brewing against this kind of tax and spend top down from Washington, D.C. liberalism. It's there. Let's keep fanning those flames. Let's make our voices heard. There are moments that are bigger than other moments. This is one of them for our country. Let's make sure we all do our part. Thank you all very much.